This wasn't just another WNBA regular season game, it was a clash of eras, a battle between a rising generational talent and a long-established titan. On one side, Caitlin Clark, the sharp-shooting phenom whose impact stretches far beyond the court. On the other, Brittney Griner, one of the most physically dominant post players the women's game has ever seen. This game had everything: momentum swings, emotional highs and lows, clutch plays, and a final sequence that will be debated for weeks. But above all, it showed us exactly what Caitlin Clark is made of and why the league's future now seems inseparable from her name. Let's rewind and break this all down. The arena was electric from the moment the doors opened. Every fan inside knew this was going to be more than just a scoreboard battle. It was personal. You could feel it in the air. Clark versus Griner, youth versus experience, speed and finesse versus strength and power. Indiana came in confident. Caitlin Clark was fresh off a double-double and had just dismantled Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. The Fever were riding that momentum hard, hoping to make another statement. And Atlanta knew it. But from the opening tip, Atlanta made it clear they were not intimidated. Ryan Howard wasted no time lighting up the scoreboard, drilling 3 triples in rapid succession, each one more deflating for Indiana than the last. The Fever scrambled to respond. Mitchell grabbed a steal and dished it back to Clark, who returned the favor for a clean 3. A spark. Then Aaliyah Boston stepped in, spinning past defenders with footwork that would make a veteran blush. But for every Indiana highlight, Atlanta came back swinging. Alicia Gray, Brianna Jones, Naz Hillman, they all got in on the action. The Dream weren't just running plays, they were executing with deadly precision, and yet Clark wasn't done. Not even close. Atlanta's game plan became clear early: stretch the floor, test Indiana's perimeter defense, and punish every rotation mistake. It worked. After Howard's 3-point barrage, Maya Caldwell added fuel to the fire. A smooth crossover on Clark followed by a silky mid-range jumper. That kind of disrespect isn't just a bucket, it's a message, and Clark heard it loud and clear. She came right back, sprinting off a tight screen and planting hard before releasing a gorgeous step-back jumper in the paint. It was soft, high-arching, and pure. But even with Clark, for every time Indiana inched closer, Atlanta's bench stepped up. The Dream weren't relying on any one player. They were a collective machine. And as the third quarter came to a close, they had blown the lead wide open, 76-55. Clark was frustrated, but frustration doesn't break her, it sharpens her. Enter the fourth quarter. Lexi Hull gave Indiana the jolt they needed. A transition 3 that cut the silence. The bench jumped. The fans leaned forward. Could it happen? Was a comeback even possible? Then came Maya Caldwell again, attacking, spinning, scoring. The Dream weren't just up, they were relentless. But here's the thing about Caitlin Clark: she doesn't play scared, she doesn't play hesitant, she plays like a woman possessed. And when Indiana returned to the Clark-Boston pick and roll, things shifted. Boston bullied her way to the hoop, finishing strong through contact. The next possession, Clark pulled up from way beyond the arc. Deep range, Steph Curry territory. She didn't blink, splash, then she did it again. Bang, back-to-back threes, and just like that, she was at 20. But Fro Caitlin Clark had arrived. But while Clark was heating up, another fire had already been smoldering on the other end. Brittney Griner, a name that echoes across basketball courts all over the world, and she was a problem. Griner had been consistent all game long, but in the fourth, she became unstoppable. Post seal, turn, bucket, foul drawn, free throws hit, hook shot over pressure, turnaround jumper over a double team. She wasn't just scoring, she was commanding the game. Indiana tried everything. Double teams, help defense, switching matchups. Nothing stopped her. Griner hit 21 points and was the anchor on defense too. It was old school, dominant post play. Something we're seeing less of in today's pace and space game, but when done right, it's beautiful. Indiana needed a miracle, and Clark decided to become it. With just under 2 minutes remaining, down by 4, she delivered a bounce pass that looked impossible, threaded through 2 defenders to Boston, who finished it with authority. Then Kelsey Mitchell took over. A tough left-handed floater tied the game at 89. The Fever had stormed back from 21 down, but the Dream wouldn't crumble. Ryan Howard drew a foul and hit both free throws, but Fro Caitlin Clark had arrived. Indiana had 9 seconds, 1 play, 1 shot. Clark didn't get the ball. Instead, Natasha Howard got it and was blocked. She recovered, took a second attempt, and missed again. The buzzer sounded 91-90. Atlanta wins, but that score, that wasn't the story. Let's be real. Clark's numbers were eye-popping. 27 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds. But stats don't tell the whole story. This game was a microcosm of everything Clark represents. Unshakable confidence, big stage poise, leadership and chaos, and relentless surgical execution. She faced traps, she took contact, she ran the offense, and she never backed down from Griner. That matters. Because if you think this game was just a shootout, you're missing the point. This was a test, and Clark passed. This wasn't just a great game, it was a blueprint. The future of the WNBA is right here, and we just saw 2 of its defining forces go head-to-head. Clark brings in the fans, the ratings, the media, but now the respect, she's earning that the hard way, on the hardwood, against legends like Griner. The WNBA has long needed a generational rivalry, and this might be it. Not just Clark versus Griner, but old school dominance versus new school range. The passing of the torch? Not quite, but the conversation has started. Social media exploded after the game. Half the internet was furious Clark didn't get the final shot. The other half was praising Griner for turning back the clock. Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. Highlight reels, conspiracy theories, play breakdowns. Some fans even called it the Clark's name trended for 48 hours, but not because she lost, because she nearly won a game that was practically over in the third. She didn't just play well, she made people care. So where do we go from here? Clark and the Fever are growing fast. The chemistry with Boston is undeniable. Kelsey Mitchell is stepping up in clutch moments. This team is no longer an afterthought, they're a threat. As for Griner and Atlanta, they're not going anywhere. They've proven they can weather a storm and still execute late. And with shooters like Howard and Gray supporting Griner inside, they've got title aspirations of their own. But that next matchup, oh, it's already circled on every calendar. Clark versus Griner, round 2. And you better believe it's going to be personal. Caitlin Clark may not have walked away with the win, but she walked away with something just as valuable, validation. Against one of the toughest matchups she could face, she didn't just compete, she thrived. This game will be remembered, not for who won, but for how it felt and how it made people talk. And that this wasn't just a game on the WNBA schedule. It wasn't just another regular season matchup to fill airtime or pad stats. This was a collision course between 2 generations, a moment steeped in symbolism and consequence. On one end, you had Caitlin Clark, the transcendent rookie whose arrival has shifted the entire gravitational pull of the league. A sharpshooting prodigy with a target on her back and the weight of a new era on her shoulders. On the other end stood Brittney Griner, the veteran, the legend, the physical force whose dominance in the paint has defined a decade of post-play in women's basketball. This was bigger than just buckets and box scores. It was a game soaked in momentum shifts, emotional highs, and adrenaline-fueled chaos. From lead changes to crowd eruptions, from clutch moments to controversial sequences, this one had it all. But more than anything, it was a mirror held up to the future of the league, reflected in the fearless eyes of Caitlin Clark. And what it showed us? That Clark isn't just playing the game, she's rewriting the narrative in real time. Let's go back to where it all began. Let's break it down piece by piece. The energy inside the arena was thick, almost cinematic. You could feel it pulsing in the air in the pregame buzz and the way the fans found their seats just a little, but Atlanta had answers. Cold, calculated answers. Alicia Gray, Naz Hillman, and Brianna Jones brought relentless pressure. The Dream were clinical, dissecting Indiana's defense like surgeons. Every possession was a new problem for the Fever. The score might have been close, but Atlanta was winning the mental game. Yet Clark, she didn't flinch. Her body language didn't waver. If anything, she looked more locked in. She wasn't going down without rewriting the script. Atlanta's strategy unfolded with ruthless precision. Stretch the floor, overwhelm the corners, exploit every weak rotation, and most of all, make Clark uncomfortable. They weren't just defending her, they were swarming her, baiting her into traps, testing her patience and footwork with every switch. Ryan Howard's early barrage opened up the court. Now the Dream could diversify their attack. Enter Maya Caldwell. She took the spotlight in stride, crossing up Clark with a smooth handle, then rising for a mid-range jumper that floated in like poetry. That wasn't just a highlight, it was a statement. That was Atlanta reminding Clark, this league doesn't wait for you to figure it out. You either fight or get exposed. Clark heard the challenge, and she responded the only way she knows how, by firing back. Coming off a tight off-ball screen, she stopped on a dime and launched a high-arcing step-back jumper from the elbow. Swish, the kind of shot that silences doubters in real time, but Atlanta refused to let the Fever build any rhythm. Every time Indiana scored, the Dream responded immediately. They weren't leaning on one superstar, they were running like a machine. Fluid, unselfish, lethal. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Alicia Gray crashed the boards like she was on a mission. Naz Hillman bruised her way through defenders, and just when it looked like Indiana had slowed the bleeding, the bench unit poured in a flurry of buckets that buried the Fever beneath a double-digit deficit.